Well, welcome to the show. We're going to start a few minutes early here. We got some stuff situated early. We're trying to check out to see if it looks a little clearer today. I've done a little tweaking to it, so hopefully the lighting's better today. Hopefully everything else is decent. We did test it. Hang on, let's see if we can't. Hang on just a second here. Looks like I'm a little too close. There we go. Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. I just wanted to just shout out a few things here. I've had a lot of people in the past that were constantly dogging on eBay, and you didn't even see the actual their financials. For those of you, I did talk about this last week. For those of you who are honestly interested in knowing what's going on with your business, I would honestly recommend looking at Wall Street Journal, New York Times, or something, and looking at what eBay posted for the third quarter. In my opinion, from what's going on, they're going to post a positive number, positive increase through the fourth quarter as well, because everything I see shows that eBay is actually doing better than they have been doing. So, plus my sales as well pretty much reflect that there is a positive change going on. So, I'm not going to dog eBay through this fourth quarter. Yesterday was a really big day for us. We had been slow a little while. Obviously, we do a lot of business to California. And for those of you who have, do a lot of business and sell a lot of items, I'm sure there's a big chunk of your sales that usually come from California, especially if you're vintage items. Again, because California has such a big population, maybe 20-30% of our sales in some days are just to California, which they were down. So we were a little nervous on that for just a couple days. And then boom, yesterday it pretty much made up everything that we were down. And then we actually went up above and beyond that a little bit just yesterday. Yesterday was just a really busy day. I didn't have much time to do anything. I had a ton of stuff to do, but with offers coming in and ton of stuff to wrap up, we had some people buy multiple items. One person bought 17 items in one, and I had to go and go through the items one by one, and it was a long ordeal yesterday. So yesterday's done, but everything has been going well, other than the little dip in California sales. So if you are slow and it is something that you have been selling, I keep track of where my items go to some extent. Like, I know that California is a huge chunk of my business, so for those of you who don't know that yet, you'll find out when you sell a lot of antiques and collectibles, whether they're California related items or not. A good chunk of that goes to, California, collectibles in general, just because there's a lot of money in the state. There's a lot of collectors. It's a big population. And New York, a lot of things go to, too. So those are like the top two cities that I mail to in this country. So, when there's issues such as, the wildfires, it does affect your sales. So just keep that in mind if you were slow or you are slow, and you do sell a lot of collectibles. That's one thing that I've personally noticed over the years. And it's not just this year, obviously. So they've had a drought there for quite a few years now. It's the worst fire they've ever had. Unfortunately, I'm not trying to make light of it because of sales or anything like that. So anyway, I've got friends in California that actually had to move out of their area. They're in the Whittier area. For those of you who may know California. But anyway, enough on that. Looks like we got a few people already in tonight. I'm probably not going to call out names until we get some questions in, just to try and save some time. I had some people comment that, I'm wasting time with names. We can see who's there. Everybody who's on usually doesn't, comment. It's a smaller percentage of it, which is fine if people just want to hear too. But, I won't call out too many names today. We're going to do some Patreon call outs, and I have some new material going up on Patreon. It would have been up today, but we've just been swamped with yesterday. I'm kind of behind one day, unfortunately. Even with having help and staff, it still can get that way too. So, when you have a big whomping day and, you've got people running around and things like that. And then today we had a storm coming in. I saw one person welcome from Pennsylvania in the snow. We have snow. Disney Family 515. Yeah, we have snow here too. This morning I got up to wake up my youngest at 5 something in the morning, and they canceled school on us. Well, first it was a 2-hour delay, and then they canceled it. So anyway, things have been kind of out there too. I still had to run off to the university with my other son and do a few other errands while I was out. But the weather right now, it's a sheet of ice outside. So, winter came back really quickly. I didn't have even a chance to go and do a second leaf pickup in the yard. But anyway, that's what's going on here. I've got a few things that I've written down. I had some questions. I think we'll go on and see what we got going on tonight, and then I'll go into some questions. And as I said, I do have a few things that I wanted to talk about too. Andrew's in the Holland Tunnel. I have been there myself. I've been stuck for 3 hours. Can't wait to quit this commute. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Hopefully your stuff's going in the right direction there, Andrew. Good evening from Portals of the Past. Welcome, Larry Spicer. Let me see here. Glad to be here. Welcome, David. Yeah, hopefully you're not stuck in the tunnel. I've been stuck on, like the Washington Bridge and things like that, in traffic. The Beltway, for anybody who's been in D.C., the Beltway around D.C., sometimes you can sit there for 3-4 hours. And I'm sure New York, you're running into the same thing with the Holland Tunnel. We've done that route before. I've traveled from D.C. to New York on a couple occasions to deliver some equipment, and I've taken the train and subway and the whole works too. I don't mind the subway at all, honestly, in New York. I'd rather do that than drive. If you've ever driven to New York, it's just a nightmare, at least from my personal experience. Let's see here. Shipping Sunshine. Well, how you doing? I'm glad to have you, Big Drift Thrift. Carl Bach. Yeah, I said I wasn't going to call out, but I always feel guilty if I don't call everybody out here. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. We'll just call them out here just to be nice. I don't want to miss anybody here. We've got Steve and Rose Reseller, Disney Family 515 I called. Eve, welcome. Cato Creek Traders. Freezing cold Texas. Texas is supposed to be warm. It's supposed to be the South. Lauren Johnson, Liberty. Nancy again, welcome. David, we welcome. Let's see here. Where are we? Carl Bach, welcome. Duncan VR, welcome. Good morning, Don. Great bolo videos this week. Sales here up 55%. Sold big order to India. Yeah, hopefully your India order was through Global Shipping Program. I do not ship directly to India. That's one country I've only shipped limited items to. Usually I ship to Japan all the time, England all the time, Canada all the time, Germany, France. And I had an offer for something to Australia the other day too. I wasn't sure if I wanted to mess with it to Australia just because he wanted it to go really cheap. And I hate when they sit in, transport, for like a month. It's just, it always wrecks me wondering if, it's going to get lost or damaged. Because I've had some items sit for a long time and show up just smashed. But anyway, Dave the Wave, welcome. Callie is the bomb. Just prefer to do first class. Otherwise, shipping can be tricky. Yeah, that is true. Scranton, welcome. Let's see, your Studio 1231, Hector L. Pooing, Cello All. Let's see, Ridge Hill Finds, Jilly. Interesting background with your shirt. Looks like Don's his own animation. Cool. Yeah, I was trying to switch this around, but I was messing around with other things and didn't have a chance to get a motion background is what I was looking for. And I just didn't have time to get the loop going, but anyway. I'm trying to stick to one background, but I'm trying to find something interesting. I've actually had a question on this. Obviously, this is the background to my intro video. Everything in this video I think I've sold. Every one of these items I actually cut out and animated for that video. They're all items literally out of our store at one time. I don't think much is actually that I have much of this. I think maybe a poster or two. I think almost everything's sold in the screen behind me. But anyway, I just picked items that we actually sell. So those are actually items that I have sold, or I may have one or two of them still up. But for the most part, I think they're all gone. But anyway, just FYI, I've had people ask about why I have those in there. That's the answer. They're literally items that we had in our store that sold. I just cut them out and flipped them up on anime and animated them. Let's see, where are we? A great lost friend and classmate, lost everything, even dogs and cats. Yeah, that's a shame. We've had some people who had some issues who had to leave. Luckily, nobody I know had any life-threatening experiences with the fire. They have evacuated, but other than that, I do pay attention to news because we've got other friends there too. I do have a friend who works for one of the entertainment companies out there. So anyway, he worked with at Disney with us too for a while. So it's somebody I've known for a long time, and I hear the ins and outs of California all the time. I've been there once or twice for a job, actually. Whittier area, of course, as well too. Let's see here. Let me slide down here. Have you come across George Braird's stuff? I found an almost complete set of the Name Your Poison glasses, etc. Got them all for $10 and sold just 4 small shot glasses for $130 in 1 hour. Yeah, there's stuff like that. I don't think I have my little list with me. I've got another video coming up on some modern day stoneware drinking cups. They're almost new. I mean, some of these are from the 2000 range. These items go for like $600-700. I wished I had the piece of paper right here, but I didn't think about calling it out. I was just literally put it for a video for the beginning of the week. I guess you're going to have to wait on that one here. But I found 2 of these in a month, and each one of these coffee mugs, and I for the life of me can't remember the name of it. Sometimes I'm bad on that, but I know them when I see them. But anyway, I sold each one of these in the $500 to $600 range a piece. They were up really quick. There's not a lot of shot glasses that go for a ton of money, or even mugs, but there are some brands that, you know, they just always sell, and they always sell very quickly. Like there's some playing cards. There's some metal brand playing cards. They're new. They're not really metal cards, but it's a brand. You know, one of these decks I got like 260 out of within maybe 10 minutes of the thing being up. So, you know, maybe I priced it too low. It's just, it's hard to tell on some of those newer items like that, just because there's so many people selling them, and some of these items still sell. But these are items I'm going to be putting together in videos for anyway. So I've got a good, what I would call a real good video coming out tomorrow. It's something that I personally make money on besides doing eBay. So this is something that will give you another call out, another option tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You'll just have to wait till tomorrow as well. Not to give you a bunch of teasers or anything, but tomorrow's video is something that I actually full-fledged would do no matter what, even if I didn't do eBay. And it's a huge, huge, huge high dollar item. You know, I plan on doing just a quick put together, 20-30 minute video, and I'm going to have to do a couple on this one. I'm going to space them apart by a couple weeks, but tomorrow look out for a good video here. It's going to give some of those folks who don't have a ton of artistic but have crafts abilities where you can really make some money here. It's a really interesting one, I have to say. So if you like something really cool, you want to see something different, and you want to see something that goes for a ton of money, tomorrow's video is going to do all that. So anyway. And one other thing I'd like to say too, I have people ask about, do you have a video on this? Do you have a video on that? I've got well over 300 videos. There's bolos in most of the videos. So if you haven't seen a good chunk of my videos, I honestly would recommend you going back and watching some of the other videos that are up. I've tried to put out the same content ever since I started, since day one. My content hasn't changed. In fact, if anything else, I've tried to improve on it and offer more items to give you the better ability here. Now, I'm going to give you a couple keys real quick, and then we're going to go to some questions here. 2 big keys that I would say. Number one is when you're looking for items to sell, get items that have several niches, not just one. So if you have a multi-niche item that could be sold in 4 different categories, you're going to do much better than an item that would only be sold in one single category across the board. That always seems to work for us. It's always a big plus for us when we do that. So that is a thing that I always do, is I always look for multi-category items. It's just a plus here. So anyway, let's go see if we got any more questions here. I cut that off for just a second here. Let me see here. Carl, have you come with... Okay, we answered that one. Let me see here. Let's get that money. Yes, treasure experts. Money is what the show is here. Ridge Show finds Jilly 4 inches of snow in PA. We don't have 4 inches, but... and Eve is in Indiana, which you have snow coming your way for sure if it hasn't hit you already. We've had a snow probably since like 5 o'clock this morning. I could hear it hitting the window. It wasn't technically snow. It was frozen ice. And that's why they literally delayed school for my youngest today. So it's always annoying. My son gets up an hour earlier than most kids because he does the drill team as well. So he gets up real early, and then they cancel it like at the last second. So we were literally almost out the door. A few more minutes, and we'd have probably been out the door just to find out that it wasn't there, and that we had to come back anyway. But anyway, I usually get the phone call before they send the text messages for some screwy condition. But anyway, we like our kids' school, so I really can't complain either way. Let's go down here. Carl does have a question. You mentioned live auctions as a sourcing opportunity. Are you going to physical auctions and or do you bid on any live local online auctions? If physical, how do you find them? Yeah, there's estatesale.com, and I think it's a state auctions sale. It's one site, but they list auctions and sales. There's like 3 or 4 sites. I'm sure somebody will pop them down in there too. But I just go online and type in local live auctions. You can do locals. As I said, estatesales.com, I think, is what the site's called. I don't have it on this PC. I've got a couple laptops, as I've said in the past, and this one, unfortunately, doesn't have a lot of the links on it. This one's mostly for broadcast and art and stuff like that. So anyway, but again, as I said, estatesales.com or localestatesales.com. There's a ton of the sites out there. That's usually what I go. I've been doing this for so long that I know where the auctions are. There's like 7 good auctions within, say, a 40-minute range of where I live. And that's about what I would go to. I wouldn't go farther than that for a local live auction because a local live auction is going to run, usually starts around 7-ish. Some start at 5 with a preview at 5, and they'll do a 2-hour preview till 7, and then 7 till sometimes 11 o'clock is what they run sometimes. It depends. Now, some auctions are big auctions, and they'll do what's called 2-line auction, which means one person will be selling one amount of items on one side, a specific kind of item, and another auctioneer will be selling other types of auctions on another line. So there'll really be 2 lines. Sometimes I've even seen 3 lines when it's a monster sale. The best auctions are the ones that have a lot of stuff where you can hang out to the end and get some table cleanups and things like that. At least that's what I do. And there's been a couple auctions that are like 2-day auctions with 2 and 3 lines running that we go to. Those are the big, massive ones, like a hoarder or a lifetime lot of items that go for sale. When you go to these auctions, you're getting a number. They'll register you whether you're paying with card or cash or whatever the case may be. I try to take a lot of cash with me. It's the one time I do take cash because most live auctions will also charge you, they're going to charge you a buyer's premium. Sometimes it's 10% even, so just keep that in mind. But some will give you a 3% discount if you pay in cash or like a certified bank check or something. I usually just take cash. It just depends, walk in there with $1,000 or something in cash, and that's usually your best bet. It just depends on what the sale is, what they have. But live auctions are probably one of the best sourcing you can get. But one thing that most people do make a mistake is they'll just want to get something at the auction. They'll have researched it prior to the auction, and then in auction fever, people tend to be aggravated and not let it go. So if it hits my mark, I've got a mark, I write it down, I take a little tablet with me when I go to a live auction. I'll write down what I'll go on in each specific item, and they usually have numbers on them. They don't always, but I'll write myself down a note while I'm doing the preview to see what I want, how much I would go up on it. And if it hits that mark, I drop out. I don't bid any farther. I don't care if it means that somebody else gets it or I'm going to walk out. Even if it's $1, if you're going to go up $1, you'd probably go up 10. If you go up 10, you'd probably go 20 or 30. So if you keep going up and up and up and thinking a couple dollars more, eventually you're going to be pricing yourself out, and you may not make enough money off of this item, when you pay too much for it. There's folks that post things on my Facebook group. It's under the Auction Professor as well. And, looking at what they pay for items and what I pay for items, I understand that when you're first starting off, there's a learning curve because I had it. I messed up. I bought things that I shouldn't have. I paid way too much for other things. I listed things that weren't worth listing and things along that line. So I made all those mistakes. Everybody's going to make those mistakes. The gist of this is to learn from those mistakes when you're at these auctions. So, don't go over your limit. Don't go over what you say it should be worth. Look it up. Don't look it up in front of the item, though. Take a mental memory of what you have. That's usually what I'll do. I'll walk away from what I was looking at. I won't show much interest in it. And I'll just do a cursory look at it, or I'll pick it up real quick and put it back down just to make sure it's real, whatever it is, when you're at an auction. And then I'll go get a seat, and then I'll look up whatever I have to. I'll make a little note if I have to, and then move on. A lot of the auctions these days also have photos. Some of the local live auctions sometimes have 1,000 photos or more, at least around here. Most of them have a couple hundred good photos there where you can see what's at the auction. And that's usually what I do. And if you ever have a question, any auction I've ever dealt with everyone in this area. If you call them up and ask them if they have boxes of paper, if they have any box lots for the end, do they do table cleanups at the end, all those questions they're going to answer because they want you to show up. Every auctioneer around here knows that they've got competition. On a good day of the week, sometimes there'll be 2 and 3 auction houses running auctions. They want you at theirs over someone else's, so they're going to give you the information. Don't ever hesitate to call and bug somebody. Don't ever even hesitate to take a drive out there to see what they got before the auction. That way, sometimes if one has a preview that starts earlier, you can look at what's there and decide if you want to go to the second auction instead of even going to this one and waiting around for it. So that's sometimes the biggest decision on which auction to go to, because if you tie your money down in one auction, you may not have time to register at another one before the good stuff's gone. So, that's the biggest ploy that you have to think about, is which auction are you going to go to make money when you're doing this. I've wanted to do some live auctions, but there's some legality, I guess, in this state with videoing inside of an auction. I technically have permission to do it from somebody, but the legality wise, and if there's issues, it could be used in a court of law, any video that's posted, and I don't want to be in any libel or any kind of issue with that. So at this point right now, I'm not going to do that, but I may here in the future. I'm still going back and forth. The person that I know doesn't want to, he's not going to invest any of his time or money into seeing it. So if I get the chance to check on legality a little better and be able to produce actual documents that show it's okay, he'll go from there. But anyway, hopefully that answers your question, Carl. I know it was a little long but hopefully that does it. Welcome, Tom. Glad to have you. Mary L., welcome. Iowa. I've been to Iowa once in my life. Hang on, my chat just disappeared on me here. There we are. Andrew, been chastised for using the global shipping program. Anyone else experience this? Yeah, I had 2 or 3 this week. I don't really worry about it, because if they ask you to send something in airmail or correspondence, that's against the law, and these people know that it's against the law on any of those. And that's literally all I tell them. I have a standardized letter. In fact, it's going to be posted in my Patreon group. Literally, I've got a new email that I started sending out too for that. So again, I'm going to have that in my Patreon group along with some stuff first thing tomorrow or by tomorrow afternoon. The rest of the material will be up. But I literally just tell them I do the cheapest legal means possible, and that it is not legal to put a piece of merchandise in a envelope, a standard correspondence envelope, which is true, because you have to declare any piece of merchandise exiting this country, and in going into another country, it also has to have the export-import slip on it so they can see the content of it, because if it's not a letter talking or correspondence in general, it's not legal to put merchandise in there. All the countries that are going to give you a hard time, they pay an import fee. All they are trying to do is to get you to violate, change, alter, or mail it a different way so that they do not have to pay an import fee. If it's going to England or Canada, it's $20. Anything over $20, they could pay $7 or $8 extra just to have it imported into their country. It's like an excise tax, like a merchandise tax. And that's literally why they're trying to get you not to send it through the global shipping program for some of these, or they're trying to get you to send it in a correspondence. It depends on the country, as I said, though. I do ship straight to a few countries, to England, France, Germany, Canada, Japan, and Australia. Those countries I do ship directly to because I've never, ever had an issue with whatsoever. I started shipping to a couple Hong Kong addresses as well, too, just because I have a better situation with that. The China post office isn't that bad for the most part. It is on some of the cheaper mail, but usually U.S. mail gets there fairly well. But again, I'm still doing most of that through the global shipping. So if they're trying to get you to do anything else other than a trackable item, don't do it. That's just my opinion, just because everything is integrated between eBay and the post office. The post office can see everything you've done to print that receipt these days. I know that's true. I've had it told to me. I know that they photograph every package. They know what package it is. They know where it's coming from. And as I've said, I've gotten notices saying I've paid too much for shipping through the post office, through eBay, and once I undercharged, and they actually sent me a bill for like 26 cents. So I know that they do this. So, at some point it may be an issue when they start cracking down on some of these regulations for the internet. And if you change, or alter or send something a different way, you could be liable in the end. So again, it's liability is the most important thing for me. For like the global shipping, you can't trust every other postal service other than us. I only trust the American Postal Service for the most part. There's ones that I'm okay with, but I fully trust the post office compared to these other ones. So again, just be safe. As I said, I don't ship to many countries because of fraud, because of lost packages. Belgium is one I would never ship to again. I had multiple packages disappear in Belgium, all the same type of stuff, different buyers. I don't know what it is. And there's some, I've bought some items from, Kiev, I think, was the city, and I can't remember it's a technical country, but it's a Russian ex-Soviet country we bought some stuff for. Some of the diodes in lighting and the cathode tubes that, the for clocks and things like that, they come from Russia. So anyway, my son puts together a lot of electronics. So I buy from, as I've said before, Alibaba in some European, including ex-Russian state areas and stuff like that occasionally too. So anyway, let's go down and see what we got here. Cara, I love that you have a Ouija board in your opening animation. Yeah, it's just one of those items. That's like 3 or 4, I think, picks ago, or 3 or 4 boards ago. I get one of those maybe once a month, and I've gotten some of the fluid ones, the original ones, and once before I got a 1905 version. I've never seen one like it, and the planchet was... I want to say it was carved bone or something, and I actually sold that one locally to a game collector, but that's been a few years. I do like the artwork and stuff like that too, so I do like the boards. They're really neat items. So if you ever are interested, to anybody out there who hasn't seen one, do a search on that. Do a comp search, as I've said. Search up stuff. Ouija boards, they go for good money. There's a lot of history to them. There's some actual handmade boards from the 1800s even, or at least different versions of it. There's more than one version of it, too. I've seen multiple different versions. The odder the better. The wood ones are the better ones. Fluid, before Parker Brothers bought it out, it's better even, too. So, anyway. Jonah likes to stream and food review. You can sure get a shout out. I apologize. Carlene Harper, welcome. Mary L, yes, I did think I got you from Iowa. Yeah, sometimes my feed goes blank. So again, I'm out in the country, so to speak. We're out near the airport, so my internet service is terrible. It's through AT&T. I have no other option. They bought out the competitor, and then they stopped offering it. So you're stuck with what we have out here. So sometimes I have some feed issues and some broadcast issues. My chat disappears constantly. I don't know if it's related to YouTube in general, but it only seems to do it on the live feed. So I kind of think it's a AT&T feed there. But anyway, let's see. Carlene, you mentioned auctions. Not sure where you're located, but Auction Zip is a good... Yeah, Auction Zip's one of them. Yes, thank you. I figured somebody would call those out. There's a bunch. There's at least 3 or 4. And then there's some other ones that you can find, some smaller ones. I usually have a list of the local one. Excuse me. I usually have the local sites for the auctions, because there's some local auctions. I usually have their sites saved in a file on my favorites on my desktop, or in Chrome. So, and I would honestly recommend that for everybody. Save everything. Save files. Write it down. Keep a record of it. Whatever you do, I usually make notes on which sales I went to, which ones were good. If I try a new one out. Just like if you're going to a flea market. Go to a flea market a couple times. If once it's bad, write down what day of the week you went, what time you went. When you're going to like an estate sale or a flea market or an antique mall, the time you go could mean a big difference, because certain people restock their booths only a certain day of the week because it's the only day they're off. Some only do it on the weekends, some do it the weekdays. So again, time is a big factor in what I do, and I try to write that stuff down. I know that may seem a little anal retentive to some people, but it's going to make you a better prophet, because you're going to know what's bad and what's not good. Just like when you go to a thrift store. Certain thrift stores, I always ask, whenever I go to a thrift store, when do you restock? Do you do this? Do you do that? I ask questions of the manager when I go in there. That way, if Savers stocks up and puts new stuff out to, say, 4 o'clock, you don't want to go after a certain point. You don't want to go when stuff's not coming out. Or you could have missed it because it's already been out. So, either way, keeping track of time, what's the best time to go to a place? That's what I look for. The best time in some stores is the minute they open up to be standing outside. It's just the way it is. Now, I just wanted to touch on this too. I'm throwing out a ton of bolos here, and I know it's more than I've done in the past. But at this point, I've looked at this, and I'm going to give you this little philosophy here, and I've talked about this many times. The more stuff you know, the better you're going to be off on this. So I went to three thrift stores with the wife the other day. 3 stores, 3 big stores, regular size. We're in a decent sized city, more than 250,000 people in the biggest city close to us, which is 15-20 minutes away, Toledo. And we hit 3 stores, spent 2.5 hours at those 3 stores total combined time. I walked out with 3 things and only 1 thing to sell. 1 thing was to use for the business, and then another thing was a shirt that I liked. So, and I really know some items. I know more than a lot of people. I knew all the collectibles. I can hang with the clothing resellers if I wanted to. I couldn't find anything. And I said, well, let me look and see if I could even find a couple of shirts worth reselling. The only shirt worth reselling was the one I liked, and I kept it. So, there's just no way to make a full-fledged living around where I'm at doing clothing. There's just no way for me to do it. I can't do it. Sabres are gone. Both Sabres closed. The other stores, their stuff has gone through the roof. Most of the items at Goodwill are broken. They run their own auctions locally, so Goodwill's pretty much dead. I have to drive 45 minutes away to hit a Goodwill that's worth going to for any practical purpose. So we've moved to, strictly the collectibles lines. I do wholesale as well, which I may touch on in some future videos. I do some minor drop shipping, and we definitely do retail arbitrage right this minute. I'm just going to call out Target. I'm just going to tell you Target. If you have a Target in your area, pay attention to Target, because that is one of the areas that I usually get retail arbitrage, including right this very minute. I'm not going to call you out the items. If you're interested in something like that, you know what it is. Just take a swing through the Target discount section or their clearance aisle. Walmart has a clearance aisle too, but for the most part, a Target or a Ross or something along that. And even Burlington Coat Factory can have some good good items. But again, you're just going to have to be selective when you're doing drop shipping like that or doing retail arbitrage. The game of this is to make money. If it means you got to do all 3 of those, that's what you need to do. Find 1 or 2 items for drop shipping maybe. Do it on a separate account. You'll need a separate login in the whole works, but I would never tie a drop shipping business to any account you expect to keep. And there's a couple subscribers on probably right this minute who did drop shipping from another YouTuber, and their feedback went through the bottom, and then now their whole account was in jeopardy. That's not an outlier. That's a typical response if you don't pay attention and get on it, because most of the drop shippers I've seen, or a lot of them, at least half I've seen, had issues similar to that, or they've lost their account over it. But again, be careful what you do. Spread out what you do. So again, we sell in 7 different places. And I do multiple things on each one of those different. Wholesale is the best, especially if you don't have to store the merchandise and you can work out a deal to market it for somebody. You take a percentage of it. They get what they want, and you get anything over that dollar amount. These are all things that you work out ahead of time. These are contracts that you actually sign, legal binding documents. I've seen enough of them, so I used to have them looked at prior a couple years back, but these days I pretty much go over them. I've dealt with legal contracts for years, probably 20 years, working in restaurants as well too. I used to sign the dealings for produce vendors and the cleaning supplies, the pest control services, the inspections, the hood cleaners, the light repair people, every aspect of a business I was responsible for. So I ran brick and mortar restaurants, if you didn't know that, as a regional manager, as a general manager, an assistant, the whole works. I started off the bottom. I've washed dishes before, as a job even. So, you do what it takes to get the job done and you advance. But let's go back and get some questions. I know I'm long-winded as always. But thank you, Carlene. OMFUG. Yeah, I understand the pet issue. We've got pets here, and the wife's a very big Ellie Mae Clampett, I guess you could say. She had a baby bird in here the other day, and unfortunately didn't make it, but that's just the breaks. So I fully agree. We have 2 pets that are basically part of the family. I've got a tortoise over here that we saved. So anytime there's a wild animal that needs help, my wife will be the first one out there trying to save it. So anyway. I'm fine with that. I love animals too. We love going to the zoo. The Toledo has a real nice zoo here. So anyway, Cincinnati Zoo I've been to, and I've been to San Diego once. Govdeals.com. Yeah, I'm not big up on that. I don't buy pallets, returns, or go to the government auctions for the most part. There's money to be made there, but I don't want to have a brick and mortar or have a warehouse. So I try not to mess with the big, huge items. And if I get a big, huge item in, some of it'll sit at in a garage at my mom's place. So let's see here. Not chastised, but Stephen Rose resale. But messages about whether I can lower the shipping. Just telling buyers that eBay handles all my international orders. It costs them more, but I'm protected. Yeah, you are protected. So if you didn't know, we'll go over this one real quick time. If you do a global shipping and it makes it to the eBay facility in this country, here where I live, it's Kentucky. So if it makes it to eBay's facility, from that point on, anything that happens to the package, eBay covers you on. If the feedback says anything about delivery or issues, as long as you mailed it within your stated time, we state 24 hours. So if I state 24 hours, I mailed it in 24 hours, it arrived at their facility, I'm free and clear from feedback related to shipping, as well as anything happening to the packages. And this is a done deal because eBay has taken care of a couple that have been lost. So I'm not out. And the same thing goes for the return, the free return shipping. The minute somebody opens up a case, they cannot leave you feedback for anything. So if you have free returns, the minute somebody opens a return claim against you, they can't leave you feedback. Let that sink in, because that is a huge, big plus. So these days, all I do is tell everybody to go straight to the open up a feedback or open up a return. No explanation, just I'm required to have you go through eBay returns. And everybody's done it. So if there is an issue, you're going to get a bad buyer one of these days, if you haven't already, where the item's fine, everything's good, there was no issues on your end, it was shipped out quick, it was shipped out within the time frame, everything else about it was sent, the way it was supposed to, but they're still not happy. Or I had one that just demanded a refund for it. They didn't want to have to worry about anything else. So just keep that in mind. Again, I follow all the rules. I don't alter anything. I don't change anything. I ship through the methods I've discussed. I don't alter that at all. In the past we did, but again, I'm a top-rated seller plus, so I want that discount. That means you have to have tracking on like 98.5% of your items or something. Maybe it's even 99% now. I track everything, so I don't worry about it either way. 100% of my items will show tracking on it, so anyway. Groat Wizard. Why do you think long tail selling is better? When I go to a local auction, everything's selling that night. Well, there's nothing wrong with, having quick turn. I'm not saying long tail items are better or not. There's no issue about it. You're going to have long tail items. There's just no way about it. What's going to happen if you have a bunch of good items, those will sell real quick, and then everything else that isn't a high dollar item or isn't super sought after is just going to sit there. So everybody's going to have long tail items. And again, if I could turn every item in 10 minutes, I would be happy to do that. But I get more for the items when I do that. The days of people trying to bid up and do auctions like they used to 10 years ago are done. Nobody wants to wait anymore. Nobody wants to do the auction format. You can look at the ended listings, the comps, and look at the difference between how many were auctions and how many were bins. You will see 60% of everything that sells is a bin, depending on the category. The other 40%, or even less, sometimes it's only 30%, are auctions. It might even be 70% are bins in some categories that I sell in. So, and they sell for more money. It's just a given. I don't care what most people say on the research. If you do your homework and you do the research like we have, put it on a spreadsheet, track what's up there. You can import this stuff in. You can convert it into an Excel spreadsheet, a comma delimited, and you can import some of this content in and sort it yourself at home. I don't know what eBay's ruling on that is, but we've done that before. It does work. There are programs to do that. And then I judge on how many are bins versus auctions. Most people I know don't even mess with auctions. I can't tell you when the last time I bid on an auction and messed around with it. Usually I just don't mess with it. If I can't get it as a bin, I don't. And so many other people are that way too. So if you're running an auction, you're not going to get as much, in my honest opinion, at least if you're selling what we sell, vintage items. Now, if you're talking about, say, a local live auction, they're selling it local at an auction for less. I mean, I make money from these people, so you take that in consideration. Yeah, they're selling it today, but they're not getting as much as I would get for that same item. So again, that goes back to why long tail. Long tail, again, I buy it at a quick local live auction. I pick it up right then and there and pay them right then and there, and then it takes a little while to sell that. But I'm more than tripling my money, quadruple my money, who knows how many times on that. Sometimes I'm making, 1,000% profit on some items, 1,000 times my investment. I might pay $2 at a local live auction in cash and be able to sell that $2 item for $1,000, $500, $100. So, I would prefer it all to sell immediately, but it's just not in the games. These days it's getting harder and harder because there's so many other sources to sell on. There's 50 sites out there that people sell on now, and every day I hear of a new one or somebody selling here. This site is offering this or offering that. So, there's people that sell across any given platform online. So just take that into consideration when you're thinking about this. Everybody wants it to sell quick, but that's just not the game anymore. You can't make it work that way. People across the board, across the platform here, even on YouTube, are holding on to the stuff longer and longer just because the markets are diluted somewhat. They'll stabilize at some point when, not a ton new people are popping on, or a bunch of people drop off and just think it's not worth it. They can't make a full-fledged living on it. They're not worried about it, or they don't invest the time or the energy into it. They don't have the vision. They don't have a drive, I've talked about all this. For me, I don't want to work for anybody. This is what I do. This is what I like. I'm free to be who I want to be. I know that sounds kind of corny, but that's literally what this is. Even if I didn't make as much money than I was before, as long as I'm happy and I like what I'm doing, that would be far better for my health, my well-being, and my family than anything else. So anyway, let's slide on down here. Hopefully that answered it somewhat there. Big Drift Thrift. I'm wondering about bolo items in younger states. I'm in Alaska, and there's not too many items that you feature in your videos. Any suggestions? Alaska has gold mining stuff. There's a ton of paper up there. I've bought stuff from Alaska when we were in California, believe it or not. So as we drove up and down the coast, Alaska does have some merchandise up there. I don't know about the specifics on the thrift and stuff up there. I don't know about the specifics on antiques, but I know there are some up there. I have sold some gold mining items from the 1850s before, CDVs and things like that. It's a little harder from Alaska, obviously. You might run into like local items, like Native American items, or something along that line up there. Alaska's a tough one. It's either mining, maybe you can look for mining collectibles or antiques related. You're going to have to think outside the box in something like Alaska. Maybe it's making your own items. Tomorrow's video is a bolo. It's something that you might have the skills to do on your own. And there's more people who have the skills to do what I'm showing in tomorrow's video than a lot of the other videos that I've put out. Sculpting and making models isn't for everybody to some extent. This category has a varied and a bigger, broader appeal, I would say. So again, pay attention to tomorrow's video, I guess I should say. I wish I could give you a little more answer on that. Everybody's sourcing situation is going to be different. Obviously, if someone's in my area, the sourcing is going to be about the same. They might have different sources than I do. There are a lot of little small places to go that maybe I have no clue on. Any city has those, so, you're just going to have to hunt outside the box. Maybe it's restaurant supply equipment you could find in Alaska that sells. Go to like a business closing sale or something along that line. Because I sell that kind of material too, from restaurants and, hotel supplies. Some of it may end up you not being able to sell it online, and maybe to be in a local market. Maybe a brick and mortar would work in Alaska. I couldn't tell you on that. I could say probably that the cost of living and rent might be pretty high in some areas. One of my sons looked at teaching in Alaska, as they would pay education, and so I did look into some of the pricing up there. Depends on where they're at. Stuff's expensive. I know a gallon of milk sometimes can cost like $4, from what I understand. Around here, you can get a gallon of milk for like 69 cents at Kroger's on some occasions. Walmart sometimes has been down to like 49 cents for a gallon of milk. So, I think about all those little things whenever I do something. So, anyway. Let's see here. Hopefully that answered it a little bit there, Big Drift Thrift. Look up Briard and name your poison. It's a great bolo. Yeah, I'll write that down, just curiosity's sake. Carl, I'm just curious on that one. I usually look up these kind of things just because, I don't want to miss anything. Name your poison, huh? I got that one down there. We'll look at it. Ridge Hill finds Jilly. Autograph cards are interesting too. Yeah, autograph cards can be good. I've got some here right this minute. I don't usually authenticate them. I did the first thing I've ever sent off to a organization through my Amazon account was an Elvis autograph, and that cost $200. I did not realize that to have an autograph authenticated, you have to. It's all a sliding scale depending on how famous the person is and how many forgeries could be out there. Elvis, there's a ton of autographs out there. There's a ton of forgeries. It's considering his sells for like $1,000 on average on an 8x10 or on a record. It costs $200. Now, somebody less famous, Christopher Reeves or somebody like that, may only be $15, $20, $30 to have it authenticated. So it was a price sticker shock, but I have 2 Elvis autographs, so I figured I'd get one done and then I could judge from there for the second one. Yeah, but autographs can be good. I think so. I'm getting more and more of these messages. You're going to get them. You're going to get more of these messages now, Andrew, because more people are buying its fourth quarter. That's going to be a given. It goes up in fourth quarter. I can tell you right off the bat. As you get into it, December and January are probably the worst 2 months for people trying to get you to sell stuff or mail it cheaper, just because they're trying to save for the holidays and things along that line. So just keep that in mind. That's what I personally have seen. Well, thank you, Carl. I appreciate that. OMFUG. Yeah, I don't know that brand, as I said, but I will look it up, I promise you. Well, thank you, Ridge Hill Finds. Lauren Johnson. What is the best way to organize your items if you don't have a lot of space? I look like a hoarder. I have shelving, and we measured out the shelving. I measured out the totes. I've got a video, actually. Actually, I have 2 videos up on this. It's in my how-to playlist on how we store, I think is actually in the title. So if you type in how we store in that playlist, you can search just for that video that way. And I have small items, so I bin everything up in big totes, and my shelves are designed where I can stack up exact amount on my shelves, and it gives me enough space to put some fragiler items on top of them. And then I've got space behind all the shelves for big items, posters. I've got space underneath them for boxes. Every inch of space pretty much is used up to the best of the ability here. I've shown some in one of my Patreon videos, another area of my facility. If you've seen it, you know that my stuff is pretty well packed in here. I mean, it's packed. I just have shelves with jammed. I've got like 30,000 items on one. I think they're like 4-foot shelves, if I'm not mistaken. They're 4x3, I think, 4 feet long, 3 feet deep. And, you can store, depending on what you sell, a ton on that stuff. We eliminated selling glassware because of space, because of, the damage. They don't sell as quick. Clothing, the same thing. Clothing, it just doesn't sell as quickly as it used to be. More competition. I don't feel like messing with clothing that you have to write down the description. It slows me down. It doesn't sell. I can't source it. So it just depends on what you're selling as to how much space you are going to need and how much you can jam in. Like if you're doing clothing, we bag everything in clothing. I'll smash it down, I'll fold it up really neat, I'll put it in a bag, take all the air out, and I can stack so many more items in a bag once the air's out, as opposed to just putting them in bins without compressing them. And we'll bag them, and we'll put the number of the item on it, and that'll tie to the listing. So when it sells, I'll just look for that number from the listing, and then boom, I can go right in and pull that item out too. So it doubles it. And I know a lot of people don't bag it up and stuff, but I try to bag everything up so nothing happens to the item. You're going to find after you've done this for a while and had stuff in storage that certain items are going to get damaged or be broken and things like that. And there's not much you can do about it if you're not protecting them. So I'll bag, we'll seal up, we'll completely encase some paper items, some plastic items and things like that ahead of time. But watch that video. I honestly would recommend it, not just because it's mine, but you'll kind of get a gist on how we do it. We've got like 48,000 items, I think, as of right this second up, somewhere in that range. Maybe it's a little higher than that now. But with the way we get everything up there, it fits in a small area. It's easy to pull out for packing. I mean, any item in my store I can pull out and find within just a couple minutes. So, you know, maybe not even that long, maybe just a few seconds even for the right item. You know, because I know where everything's at. You know, I've got a layout we've taken in. I've got things numbered and marked. You know, watch the video would be my best recommendations on storage. Let's see here. Flipping South finally caught alive. Glad to have you. Glad to hear you're liking them, hopefully. Yeah, Stephen Rose resale. Block them. I do the same thing. You can get some bad feedback, Stephen, on global shipping program, but not for the shipping aspect. If you listed something wrong, chances are you won't be able to argue that one out of there. Let's say you missed a page, was ripped out of a book, and it arrives and the page is missing. They can legitimately leave you feedback for that issue, but anything shipping related, the minute it hits Kentucky, I'm free and clear. There may be another facility. I'm not sure where everybody else's goes to. I know, you know, from down to Florida and Mississippi, even Virginia, it all went to Kentucky for their main hub, what they shipped everything through the global shipping program out. So that's just what I personally have seen. So welcome, Annie. Good to see you. Welcome, Michael. Yeah, snow is nice. I always miss when we were down south, I missed the snow. For those of you who haven't seen snow, when it's coming down really hard and it's really big snowflakes, it's just fluttering down, everything is quiet. It kind of like quiets everything. It like deadens the sound, and it's just a peaceful peaceful time, I guess you could say, especially if it's like the holidays and there's lights, Christmas lights outside. We had a time where we got snowed in, and me and the wife ran out and went to the store and walked in the middle of a storm. It was fun, actually. I mean, it was a neat experience and stuff, and just to get a bottle of wine, just to, you know, enjoy ourselves. But, you know, anyway. Yeah, it's a money thing when people complain. That's definitely what it is. Welcome, Thomas. Yeah, thanks, Annie. Auction Zip. Yes, that is correct. Yeah, Andrew, if they keep complaining, most of the people are going to give you a hard time. If they get the item and that you sent it directly to them, they could give you a hard time about condition or anything else with the item. The minute they give me a hard time on shipping, I don't worry about selling it to them, you know, because again, I don't want a bad feedback. If it means I don't sell to somebody who is disgruntled over it, that's fine. And I would honestly recommend blocking them if they're being nasty about it. I've had people say all kinds of nasty stuff over my shipping policies, but again, this is where this is my business. You know, I ship to the countries I want to. You know, they follow their own rules. All they are trying to do is to avoid paying the import fee on anything over $20. You know, I'm telling you that right now. You know, I've had people ask me runabout way and then act like they didn't know. Most anybody who buys, you know, for business or as a collector knows the import fees. They know if it's over $20 to England, they're going to pay a fee on anything over that $20 amount. It's just a given. So they try to get it cheaper. If you don't declare it, you don't use the global shipping, it may not be declared. Or even sometimes I've had somebody want to cancel a listing because I wouldn't alter the amount on it. Let's say they bought a $200 item. They wanted me to list it as $17. I'm not going to do that. I don't care what the response is. I don't care if that means that I'll lose that $200. I would rather be safe, you know, and follow the rules these days. You know, maybe 20 years ago I was, you know, stupid and did some dumb things, but I wouldn't do that these days. You know, my life is on the line. My reputation is at stake, and so is my family. So, yeah, estatesales.net. That's the one I was talking about. Yes. Treasure experts. IRS. If you're talking about IRS auctions, they do have. Let's see here. If my feed will go right. Well, thank you, Tyrannosaurus. Tyrannius Oz, I'm sorry. I'm always bad at pronouncing some of those. I appreciate that. Well, congratulations. Well, I just lost it. Hang on just a second. Let's see if I can get to back where we were. Let me get back down to that again. I don't want to miss anybody if you have a question. We have been having one of the driest Novembers ever in Oregon. Sunshine, no snow for us. Yeah, that goes into the fires in California and the drought too, Kathy. That would be my opinion from what I see. I've been out that way a couple of times. Michael, buyer's fee 15% and 2% discount cash. Yeah, it just depends. Here, I think it's 10% buyer's premium at most of the auctions. And the last one I went to was a 3% discount with cash. They will take a bank certified check as well. So just look into that. I would, again, honestly keep a logbook of every auction you go to for a little while until you know which ones are best. This is a philosophy that will save you time and money. Like as I said here, this is auction season. We're going into major auction season because people can't sell this at estate sales as easily. They don't do garage sales, so this is the time that people get rid of a lot more stuff. This is the time I go to auctions here. I've been to some this week. I will be going to a couple, one this weekend and then a couple this coming up week, one on Tuesday and then another one on Thursday. So it's an earlier one. I'm not going to be there long. Some auctions, too, if you don't have time, I've asked auctions as well to run something ahead of time, told them I had to be somewhere. I only am interested in this one item. Is there any chance you can pull it up to the front to auction it first? Probably 75% of the time they'll do that. Some other auctioneers have, if they have two lines, they usually won't because they've got it all staged in a certain order so they can run these lines good. Those are usually the better auctions, too. Sometimes they'll go for higher, but some people will be able to show up, get the items they want, leave, and then you can get some of the better stuff later on after they've spent their money too. But auctions are always good. Yeah, there's a limit you have to spend on some items too, if that's what you're referring to, Kathy. Yeah, Tyrannius Oz. Now, Trifari has some high dollar ones. I picked up a Trifari with rock crystal quartz the other day. It's probably late 40s, nothing like it. I would call it a runway piece. You get the right one. I spent $2 on this. You get the right one, you could have $400 or $500. The pins are where the big money is, but Trifari in general usually sells at some point. I would never spend more than $1 or $2 for a standard Trifari. Most Trifaris, if they're like an animal or something, you'll get $15 or so for. But again, it sure beats selling a shirt. You pay $1 for a pin, 50 cents for a pin. You get a profit of $12 after all is said and done. They pay for shipping. Or you could buy a shirt. Nowadays, a T-shirt at Goodwill is $4.99 here. And that's sometimes with issues. And then they put the little tag through the clothing, which leaves a tiny hole, and then it damages the clothing. In general, I try to stay away from stuff like that. Auctions are so much better in my book. There's so many of them that these days. So many people don't look up what they have. Even the auctioneers don't look it up. They're there to make money. I don't know why people still do some of these bigger auctions and put the stuff up and stuff. But anyway. Did you bid and buy things on online auction estate sales? There's a lot of those too. I usually don't do that. I had a friend who was dealt with one of the local ones here. And I don't like the whole setup on that. Basically, the people who put the stuff up lose a ton of money, whether it sells or not on these. I think when they do the local live, online auctions, you're going to pay more for it as well, too, from my personal experience. I really try to avoid those. And most of the time, I want to see what I'm looking at in person. I used to buy things, offline in some of these auctions, honestly, but there's been too many times where the picture, didn't do it justice, and I get it in the mail, or they shipped it out, and it wasn't what I was expecting. You can't return anything from all of those auctions. There's also a boxing fee, which increases your price you pay for anything on there from most of those auctions as well. That's why I usually don't do anything like that. I haven't done a local live or any of those online auctions a couple years probably, I would have to say. I couldn't even tell you when. It's been so long. Again, I like to see stuff in person. I like to be able to touch it and feel it to make sure it's good, make sure I know what it is. It's the only way to know for most items. There's enough of those that I can get to that I don't have to worry about sourcing. I've shown, as I said in a Patreon video, some of my other merchandise, and now I showed a small portion. If somebody saw how much I really had, you might call it a hoarder, but it's pretty much neatly in boxes or on shelves. Maybe not the paper, but it's hard to store 30,000 pieces just on a shelf. I've got like 100,000 pieces of paper or more just on one 6-foot shelf, not counting the other. So, having quantity of backstock is key. That way, if I don't find stuff at an auction, I'm not going to be dead in the water. Sourcing is most people's, bottleneck is your sourcing. You can't find enough items. So, buy it when you can. And like for us, the philosophy was buy it through summer, because summer, everything is cheaper. If you're not aware of that, this is your first year, you're going to buy stuff cheaper during the summer across the board at any sale, auction, or whatever the case may be. Just like you are selling the stuff for more, you're going to pay more to buy anything. Anything. So I load up through these summer months. So when there's less places to go, most across the country, there's less places to go in the winter. It's just the way it is. People don't run sales near the holidays. Some do, but for the most part, they don't. So, again, play the philosophy game. Research everything, including what you're doing. Buy during the summer if you can afford to do it. Again, if you're just starting off, you can't afford to spend, $5, $6, $7 extra $1,000 a month to buy merchandise that you're not going to sell for 3 or 4 months. For us, that's not an issue. So I don't mind sinking, $5,000 extra into something, a bunch of stuff, or, a whole bunch of stuff that I bought for $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever the case may be. It can sit here. I've got items, $100 items just sitting on shelves right now just because there's better times to sell things. Again, that goes back into long tail items. Getting the highest percentage of profit is the best way. And people say, well, you're paying to relist it. I get 10,000 free listings in 2 different stores, so I get 20,000 free listings. I get 2,000 free auctions. And even if I go beyond that, it's 5 cents a piece to list them, 60 cents a year to list an item. So if I've got a $2 item, I know it's going to sell at some point. I can run it for a year and only be 60 cents more into it. I can run it 2 years and only be $1.20 into listing it at the most. If it's in the 10,000 listing, it breaks down to like 4.25 cents or somewhere in that range, 4.25 cents per item listing. Plus, I get the free boxes too. So again, play the numbers. Look at your math on what it costs you. Is it worth running a $2 item for 2 years when it's going to cost you $1.20 to list it for those two years? No. But is it worth doing it for something that's going to probably sell for $20, $30, $40? Yes. If it's been up for a couple years, then take it down if it hasn't sold. Switch categories every 3 months if you have to. Switch the title up, switch keywords up. Those are all things that we do that really seriously impact our sales, Run some sales if that's what you need to do. You want to reload that? I don't know if it's running bad on your end or not, but we're running a little behind. It looks like it's lagging. We're going to try and reset it here real quick. So if we blink for a second here, don't hesitate. Hang on just a second. We've got some more questions here. Let me pop down. Yeah, some people are just nuts, Stephen. That is totally true. Yeah, I used to worry about it, as I said. You've got to have the right mentality. I used to worry about it if they say something nasty or insulting. I don't really care if somebody insults me or says anything online. They're not. They don't even know who I am. They're not insulting me. They're insulting an eBay seller. So I never even get upset anymore. It's delete, block, and then move on. If it's something they said something beyond the point, or they're trying to get me to do something that's against the rules, then I report them for that, delete, block, and move on. That's all there is to it. Just ignore it. Don't let it bother you. Let me see here. The truth. Anything over $2 can now be charged $28.75 to Canada and vice versa to the U.S. So I was told this week. That I don't know about. I have not heard that at all or have seen that. I will look into that. As far as I know, is that shipping, or are you talking about, is that a import fee? That seems really high. It used to be a percentage of whatever the item sold for, and that was like 2 months ago. I did look at it again because when our prices change, I want to make sure that none of the other postal issues change as well too. So I wrote that down. I will look into that, the truth, and get you back on that one, maybe in another video. What price on your Patreon do you get that info? The membership that most people have is the $9.99, and that includes all the videos. I hit my first goal, so I'm also answering one question a piece from each one of my subscribers to my Patreon account, specifically in a video that I'll just literally address your questions with. That's the one that includes everything. If the $4.99 includes the paperwork and stuff like that. So the $9.99 is probably the one that includes it. I just threw out some price. I don't know what to price anything at on stuff like this. All the social media is all new to me. I'm not a social media wizard, obviously, you can tell. I'm more a graphics artist and, a reseller, eBay fanatic. And I would say I'm a fanatic on eBay. We've done it since, eBay was eBay. And I get dogged on that too, because I never say much bad about eBay, but there's enough people bitching about eBay, pardon language, but bitching about eBay on YouTube as well. Now, I don't need to add to that because I don't have those issues. You make the best of what you got. You can't change eBay, but you can change your own practices enough to increase or improve your sales, and that's what I personally get out of this. So you see, this is all I do, I'm on eBay. I answer people. People send me questions to my eBay account from my channel here. It's me. I do what I can to help people out. My time has gotten very precious these days too. So I'm kind of behind a little bit on my Facebook. I think I caught up as of last night though. So please bear with me, everybody. The next step we're going to add another goal to my Patreon. Next one here, I'll probably bring another employee in, and I'll have one person specifically helping with just my online presence all the time would be my goal, my next goal set. So anyway, I'm trying to be able to offer you more. Again, bolos are the number one thing you need to know right now. So, not anybody can tell you whatever they want, but the bolo, knowing what to look for and all the different types of items are your key right now. Because there's no way most people can make it in their town just on a few niches these days. It's not the same market it was 5 or 10 years ago. Let me see here. Don has way more experience than me, but I ship anywhere with First Class International, Pride International, not GPS, and so far so good. Hong Kong, EU. Yeah, you can take your choice on that, Annie. We used to do that, but we had a record go overseas, a couple records. I brought up the Belgium. And I don't know if it's a con job or what. I had an item lost to Germany, but I still ship directly to Germany. I'm hesitant on some countries because we get some oddball items. I've been offered, had people want to ship to Libya and, some of the Middle Eastern countries. I don't have any problem with anybody from the Middle East, so don't take that as any in consideration. But I have a problem with worrying about how the postal service is. I do look up a postal service when I do that. I had a Bulgarian purchase the other day that, went through the global shipping, but I'm always hesitant. I don't trust everybody's postal service. It could take one item to sink you, You can set it up however you want. If it works for you, that's great. I'm not going to criticize somebody for doing something different. My recommendations are what I do. We've looked at adding other countries to, straight ship. Maybe we could get some more sales. Like I said, Hong Kong I do ship to, and I'm probably going to open up China just to see what happens. Just because we've got some contacts now. I've got some factory contacts. My son's been getting some certain electronic items from a retailer, a company, I should say, in China, and I've got some connections now. So I've got a little insider info on some Chinese stuff. So anyway, long story short, I'm probably going to open it up to China. Let me see here. I've had no issues with the Russian Republic, and they will pay premium prices for items because not many people offer shipping to them, and GPS didn't use to include them. Yeah, it did not. You're right. They've added and expanded the global shipping program. From what I understand, eBay has to have a LAN facility, an actual brick and mortar place at each country they do this to for a central distribution point where they hand it off from eBay to the postal service there. So that is why eBay hasn't offered it to some countries, from my personal understanding. Kiev, yeah, Ukraine. That's literally where we got something the other day. So anyway, Belgium was the country. Yeah, personally, I had issues with Belgium, as I said, so I don't ship straight to Belgium. That was when I cut off shipping to many countries and only shipped to those 7 or so countries I started. Just because, again, as I said, I'm not going to get skanked. Pardon language, but that's the way to call it. on a dealing going to overseas. I sell enough in this country, and I do still sell enough overseas. I am top rated plus globally. Every country on the planet that eBay does business with and that I ship to, I have a top rated seller plus. So if you know anything about the program, that means that I have to have sold so many thousands of dollars to each one of these countries, which isn't a big deal anymore. eBay did change around which countries are in which block of grouping block. So because they've separated Germany out and stuff, so you can be globally top rated plus in all these areas better and easier than you used to be before. But anyway, a little rambling on there. Sorry about that. If you ever get those old Ouija boards, holler at me. I collect them. I'd love to get some odd old ones. Yeah, they're fewer and far between these days, but we do run into them. As I said, I had one that had the planchet was bone. I was the only thing I'd say. It could even been ivory. I don't 100% know. It was so long ago. I wasn't up on what to look for. Nowadays I am, but it was a real nice one. It wasn't the typical layout either. I know there's like 4 or 5 major layouts that you can find on some of those. I'm fascinated by the artwork and stuff and the stuff that ties to it. Let me see here. Do you test all your records, Carlene? No, I do not test all my records. I have seen 5-6 million records in hand, one by one, through my eyes, past my eyes, in my time of doing records. Once you've played enough records, you'll get the gist on the quality. You can even tell what's going to happen with most scratches. Now, if it's, say, a $300 plus record, I'm definitely going to play it. If it's over, say 500 or plus on a record, I'm going to put a 30-second clip of the front and a 30-second clip of the back, as well as play testing the entire record. I never post more than that, so no one can rip the track. We've sold records for $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a single 45 before, and those ones, I play really well. The winner actually usually gets the actual clipping too of it. That one I will sell if they pay that kind of money for it. I usually include the MP3 with it. I'll usually just give them a chip when I mail it off, a SD card with it. But anyway, so no, I don't test most of them. 99% of the records I do not play. I can visually grade them very easily and with just a quick moment. I do not get any returns or complaints about my grading. You can look through my feedback. I had my negative was gone that I discussed last week. eBay gave these people another day because of the holiday, but anyway, it's deleted. They can't leave anything. I sided with me as always. But once you've seen so many records, you can just tell. I don't know how else to say it. It's going to take time in to be able to do that. If you don't know, you're going to have to listen to a bunch of music. For me, I love listening to music. I've got playlists. If anybody in my Patreon would like to have some playlists so you can have some stuff set up, let me know and I'll post those in Patreon too. I've got playlists for classical. I love Ravel. I love Beethoven the Fifth. I love Bolero is one of the wife's favorites if you like classical. For me, classical is like heavy metal back from the 1700s. If you ever been to a orchestra and you're sitting down front and they're just blaring it and going off, Night on Bald Mountain or something along that line's playing, or Bolero when it picks up to the high notes and it's just going off, it's like heavy metal for back in the day. Watch the movie Amadeus. That's a good movie, by the way. But anyway, I listen to all kinds of stuff. If anybody likes some playlists, I've got 80s hair band. I've got 90s alternative. I've got some R&B because I do like R&B. This Is How We Do It, Montel Jordan. I've talked about that before. One of my favorites. There's a ton of them, though. So, I'm old school R&B and rap. So Beastie Boys has always been one of my favorite groups of all time. So, get yourself something to listen to while you're doing this, too. Enjoy listening to music if you want to do records. And again, like if I'm trying to price a record, I don't know what kind of music it is. You're going to run across those, too. Half of those records you can find on YouTube, and I'll listen to it to know. So I won't have to play them even. So, as long as you're able to grade them visually, you can usually find somebody else who posted that record up on YouTube, and then you can tell the music. There's a big difference between country and rockabilly, and that's one difference you need to know, and that's why you may have to play it too, just to know what kind of music it is. So I don't necessarily always play test them, but I do play some to figure out the genre of the music. Again, long about answer there, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea on that. What do you think about using stock photos? I never use stock photos ever. I take a fresh photo of everything across the board. I don't think you can find any stock photos of anything I use. Amazon, different story. Amazon, you use what's there, or you supply your own if you have the only one of those up. Most of my vintage collectibles use the same photos after I've altered them, or the ones I use on eBay. And that way it's easier to tell when I'm pulling an item down or cross-listing as well, too. The town of Salem, yes, we've been in the area. We actually stayed at the House of Seven Gables in Salem. I've got pictures. We went whale watching off Gloucester when we were up there. We did antique shopping when we were there. We did Brimfields in Boston. We bought so much stuff up there that we had to send boxes and boxes of stuff back that wouldn't carry on a plane. I talked about the story. I got stopped at the airport for bringing a lunchbox full of coin silver spoons back. It looked like some device is what it looked like. I got the big, strip searched and the whole works at the mall or at the airport, and they wanted to make sure it wasn't a bomb and all this other stuff. But anyway, it was a great trip. I love Boston. Salem's nice. Yeah, Parker Brothers as well. I've sold trade cards from Parker Brothers from the 1880s, before they were really known as a toy company. They all are marked Salem as well too, so I know the area very well. Yeah, they do sell well around Halloween. You're definitely right on that, Annie. Yeah, the net neutrality, OMFUG, hopefully it'll be reinstated. There's several lawsuits pending. It's not a done deal yet. When another administration gets in, chances are net neutrality will be back where it needs to be. They're going to do it. They've already started throttling what they can. Anytime a regulation is laxed or loosened, they throttle. And the person in charge of this pie, he's just out for money. He's been caught taking bribes and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I'm not going to get into any politics, but let's just say I believe it should be an open platform, the internet, for everybody. There should be no throttling, no special privileges. Joe Schmo with one follower should have the same rights and speed as anybody else, even if the ones have 10 million followers. There should be no difference in my book. It should be an evil level playing field. Welcome, Barnstar Vintage Treasures. Shore Essentials. Hi, Don from Atlantic City. Been there myself. Well, I appreciate it. We used to watch Jersey Shores. I know that's not the best show, but, it gives you a break from reality for a little while, I guess. Talking about Atlantic City and all. Welcome, Tracy. Garinja, I go early, swap meet, and source. Yeah, early. There's one in Florida. If you know where Webster's is at, they used to have a flea market. You'd have to be there at 5 in the morning on a Monday, even in the winter, with a flashlight. But that was the best place in Florida that we sourced. Brimfield's, obviously, if you get up to Mass, driving your car and get some beans. But anyway, that's the area we go to. Yeah, that's the good thing there, Andrew. I don't necessarily do screenshots, but I make good notes on what I have. I want to know what's there. I want to know the best auctioneers, the ones that don't piddle around. I want to know which auctions have table cleanup, scrap cleanup at the end. That's key to making this work. You have to have the table cleanups available. Those are usually where you get some dirt cheap stuff, $1 or $2 for a whole table, $5 for a table, hundreds of items. Even if half of it's junk, you're always going to make money. I've never lost on a table cleanup, ever. Welcome from New York. Been there many times. Char. Let's see here. Please keep the bolos coming. Yeah, I've got a bolo coming out tomorrow, Barnstar. One that would be very interesting. You got some really killer high dollar items coming out tomorrow. Yeah, first new people into the field, you may not have a clue what stuff are worth, and that's the biggest thing I see. Even if I just give you a start, you're going to be seeing bolos out the ears here. I'm just going to keep throwing bolos out. I take notes, and I've talked about this before. I always have a tablet with me. I have one next to the PC. I have next to my laptops. I have one in the bedroom. When I think of something new, I write them down. I've got 127 topics on a piece of paper for bolos right this second that I haven't touched on at all. And I'm not exaggerating. It's 127 items. It's on an Excel spreadsheet, so it's easy to see. 127 different bolos still to do, and that's just the ones that I've already written down. Every day I think of a couple more, and I write those down. They're things that you're not going to find every day. You may only find a couple a year, but that's all it takes. You find a couple of one item a year, a couple of another item a year. You could have a couple hundred items found over things you would never think about. Just out of the ordinary, oddball, just crazy stuff that sells for a ton of money. Let's see here. New fan of yours. Well, thank you, Collective Clothing. Costume jewelry is good. Some of it's, again, going to be long tail, but the good items, the runway style items, the early mod, early Trifari, they all sell quick. Target banned me from online orders when I was doing online arbitrage. My closest target is 40 minutes away. I also live out in the country. Flipping south. Yeah, you're going to run into that when you're buying huge amounts of it. I try not to do it online. And also on some occasions I'll even switch cards from one target to another. Just because it might show up on a regional report. If you're in the same region, I was a regional, so we looked at stuff like that. Some of the reports will show you, and you can tell when a person went to every store in your region. Sometimes that's a way you can track down someone conning you, or an employee stole a card and is working with other people. I handled loss prevention from my region as well. We had a separate loss prevention guy, but it all came to me. Everybody checked with me, store level wise. If they had an issue with somebody stealing, I might have to set up cameras, extra hidden cameras in a store and catch them, or hide a camera over the register or something like that. That's just something you have to think about. So they can tell a lot of information by your sales record. So that's why I say I do switch charge cards from store to store, or sometimes I'll check and see which one is in which region, ask which region they're in. That's possible too. So it just depends. Yeah, tomorrow's an interesting one. It may not be for everybody, but it's something that most everybody's probably seen and had no clue. I'll leave it as a surprise. Welcome, Jody. You talk about all the things that nobody else covers. Thank you. I appreciate that. The things I talk about are things that I've had. I think everything that I've given you in a bolo, I've had something in those categories. Not probably every single item I think I've talked about. I've had, I sell, I look for, I buy myself. I'm not going to put something out there unless I know it. You're not going to see me talking about sports cards. I don't know sports cards. I don't know anything about it. I don't know sports equipment. I don't know jerseys or anything like that. That's not my area. I'm not an Apple person, so I won't be talking about Apples, iPhones. I'm not Apple at all. I don't like Macs. Never have. I know which ones to buy for money, the vintage early ones, but anyway. Richard Johnson, hi Don, welcome, Richard. I saw there is a way to list items in my eBay store on other country-specific eBay sites such as UK. Yeah, I somehow, they stuffed me into that. I had to block them access. It turned into a nightmare the very first day, even though I didn't actually subscribe to that. It's 6 different sites. I think it lists like 80% of your listings or 50% of your listings. There's no fee up to a certain point, but then it goes into translations, and you have to register with each one of those sites. You have to go into PayPal and be able to take foreign currency and have it transferred and, turned into U.S. currency. There was a lot more to it, and it just didn't seem to be feasible. I didn't want to run into having to ship to these countries. I went to answer a question, and it took me to their country eBay page, and it was all in foreign language. I hadn't a clue on what to do. Google Translate was terrible on some of the wording. I personally will not do it. I got another notice on it. They send me, I guess maybe because of the size of my store, I had an offer for that months ago. And it just turned into a fiasco within a couple hours, and I literally blocked it just to get it off. They wouldn't cancel it. It was just a hassle. Your call on that. I personally don't want to mess with having any other issues with possibilities of negative. It doesn't explain much. The minute you click that button too, you're signed up. The only way to get out of it is to go into your preferences and go to the third-party approvals and then block them from having access to your account. It's the only way you can get that out of there. Sending them a letter is not going to do anything. So I was hesitant. It seemed kind of odd to me They could just hit you with a bunch of fees later on. I just didn't want to mess with it, truthfully. It's obviously a new service that they're going to market to us at some point for a fee, and they're trying to get you involved in it ahead of time. That's my opinion on it. It'll be a feed service at some point, just like some of these cross-listed, Ink Frog and all that kind of stuff too. Hopefully that answers your question. I'm avoiding it like the plague. I saw it in action for just a few hours, and it scared me off already. And I'm pretty knowledgeable. I've got IT degrees. I'm not afraid of any technology, but this thing just seemed like it was a risky endeavor that could risk your actual eBay account if something went astray. And without knowing the language in this other country, I just couldn't physically feel comfortable doing it. I had an issue the very first day, as I said. Shore Essentials. I'm real pleased with my first attempt at inferior sales. Picked up a $2 lot that had a $135. Is that $135? Yeah, and counting so far. Would have looked twice at it if not for the professor. Well, I appreciate that. Lots like that sell. Most of what I sell are stuff that most people could care less about. They think it's junk. And in every day I got some new items, a whole new niche just this week. So, there's a ton of new stuff to get out there. There's a ton of things you can create yourself. You can sell on Etsy. Cross-listing is a key to our business these days too. Let's see here. Eve, I pick all the time in Cincinnati. It's right by my day job. I'm a prime spot to pick 3 different states, Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. I just had a buyer in Europe ask me to do that. Well, that's good for you. Sounds like you got something going on. I had one open a PayPal case and tracking cleared his complaint up as soon as PayPal reps saw it was delivered. It depends on if they open up a PayPal versus a chargeback. A chargeback through PayPal or through their charge card company is different. If it's a PayPal case, it's one thing. PayPal has gotten better. PayPal used to be bad, but I think PayPal is trying to hang on. It's going back and forth. I heard that PayPal will still be an option once they switch over to Aiden. Again, I can't have any confirmation on that. I've heard that from somebody at eBay who isn't really supposed to get into insider information. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. There has been some circulation of material that states that at eBay, from what my understanding is. True or not, I don't know. Let's see here. Well, thank you, Jody. Let's see here. Yeah, Barnstar Vintage. I was calling out Target. We are retail arbitraging from Target right this minute. I'm not going to give out the item because I don't want everybody else to go and get them at my local stores. But right now is a good time to do some retail arbitrage. You've got, Black Friday's coming up. I've been talking about this. We started doing some of that last month. You can FBA it if you've got the clearance. Of course, you're going to have some wholesale slips to FBA some of the toys that are retail arbitrage. So for those of you who don't have that ability, you might be SOL. But you can get lucky in some stores. I've heard from some Rosses that Ross will do it to some extent. I don't know how true that is. I don't have a Ross around here. But we do have a few stores that will give us wholesale slips when we buy a bunch of them when they come in. They're fine because I pay their asking price and they would just go to the floor. They'd rather sell them all to me with a slip than, piddle them out one at a time. Especially if it's toward the end of the month and the manager running that store is trying to make his bonus and my extra sales from him will give him his bonus. I mean, it's a win-win for both of us. Yeah, freedom beats, Stevens, freedom is the key to some of this too, for my happiness. I have never been as happy as I am now. I'm free to be and do whatever I want these days. I've got many endeavors that we're working on. We're going to be doing some animation and some other things here. I'm probably going to have a secondary channel too, so for art, just because I don't want to bore everybody with art on this channel. But anyway. Well, thank you, Dale. Yeah, most people got rid of theirs. I was one of those who was a pack rat as a kid, and I saved most of those items. Let me see here where we're at. Let me see here. We're running down to the end here, too. It's getting close to the 8:30 mark. I'm going to probably cut it off in about 5 or, probably about 8 more minutes here beforehand. Let me see here. Yeah, please hit the like button. If you haven't, I'm always bad on saying that again. As I said, I'm not a social media marketing guru or anything. I try the best I can. But if you do enjoy the video, please always hit the like button for me. I'm really surprised I haven't had that same person do the negative on there. That's their prerogative, but anyway. Let me see here. Where are we? My feed keeps disappearing on me again. Sterilite totes. Yeah, I use that, John Jones. That is true. That will works. I stuff everything and I calculate my space. Barnstar Vintage Treasures done. When you walk into a thrift store, what are the top 10 types of bolo items that you are looking for, and in what order do you look for them? Around here, I never look for clothing anymore, so I'm usually just going to the metal areas. Usually I'm looking for sterling at some of the shops I go to because most people miss that. I look for, usually the toy section is probably one of the big ones I always go to. If they have bags of toys hanging on a wall, that is usually the number one. I hit electronics on the back walls too. I'll hit the bins of electronic items. Let's see, remote controls are always good to buy at thrift stores. I always hit the playing cards, toys, as I said, books as well too. You know, I look for everything. There's no specific, I guess I should say, that I don't look for right away. Toys are usually the first part. I like toys, so I usually go to the toys. Records I always look through. If they've got 78s, I usually do a quick glance through the main section minus the clothing. And if I see a bunch of new records, I might hit those first. Just depends on what kind of records. If they're LPs, I will wait to the end. If they're 78s, I'll look right away. If they're 45s, I look right away too. Hopefully that gives you a gist. It just depends on the store I go to. There's some stores that almost always have the same type of items show up, you know, that I can make some good money on. And, you know, it just depends on the store. That goes back to making notes on the places you go. Know which store and what you're going to find, where you find more of certain things at over and above other stores. Some it might be because of the area, or there's older folks that live around there. It's an older community. You might find more antiques at one store versus another. For me, you know, thrift stores in general just aren't much of a thing for us around here. As I said, I went to 3 the other day. I walked out with 3 pieces, 1 to resell, 1 for my business, which is like a boom arm, spring boom arm, and then a shirt to wear. So, you know, that was it for 2 or 3 stores, 2.5 hours. Waste of time if I was going to resell. I would have gotten nothing out of it. My time would have been better spent that day listing. So anyway, where are we? Let's see here. Clo totes are worth the cost. Yes, everything is clear totes. That way you can actually see what's in the totes. That has helped me save me a lot of time, honestly. Let me see here. Hang on, I'm just trying to scan through here. Will you be doing any photographing clothing? I've got still like 100 pieces of clothing. I haven't even touched them yet. I just put them on the back burner, actually in a closet. If you're talking about the video tomorrow, it'll just be up and you'll see it tomorrow for that one. It's just gonna be another bolo, but it's gonna be on something that I personally love. The category. It's one of my favorites across the board. It's got many tie-ins with it actually, and it ties into so many different categories. Honestly, at least for me, it does. Patricia Lynn, welcome. The auction I go to accepts absentee bids. Yeah, I'm not big on absentee bids. Most of the ones around here I don't think are all as honest as they should be, I guess you should say. I've done it in the past with absentee bids, but again, I usually go to that facility to see the item before I'll ever place a bid. I want to see what it looks like. I want to see the item in hand to know it is what it says it is. You know, probably a third of some of these items you see at some of these sales have been sold, listed, or fake, damaged, repaired. There's so many issues you could find with these at an auction here. You know, even scrupulous auctioneers will fix items and not say that they were fixed, or they'll say it's a first edition and it's not. So, you know, just keep that in mind. RVA Flips, welcome. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't care if somebody doesn't like me, Tyrannius Oz. You know, that's their call. I'm here for business. You know, my feelings have nothing to do with me making money. The better way I can make money, the most way I can make money, I'm going to do whatever I can to get that money coming in. I don't say it's not an apology, RVA. I just, I'm beyond that these days. I've got a vision of where I'm going, and getting to the end of the road here where I want to be is all that I'm worried about. Anything else is just a waste of my time. And my time is stretched. Not as thin as it could be, but I'm working on probably bringing somebody else, another employee in, as I said. So, you know. I sold a $3,000 Fluke infrared camera to China, and the guy gave me his DHL number. I checked his purchase, and he had bought several. It all worked out. Yeah, it just depends. It just depends. DHL is a pretty good company. Let's see here. George Benson has a couple songs that I have listened to, yes. With trends coming and going, do you hoard some items for later years? Most of the time, I've got a 90-day. I do 3 months on a cycle is what I usually do. Let's see here. Yeah, and you want to watch out. On some items, the price could go down. So if you're buying, make sure it's an item that the price doesn't fluctuate. You're not going to lose on your investment. I pay so little for so much items that it's not a big ordeal. Yeah, Gloucester is one of the best places whale watching. We got to see humpback whales, Annie. I've got some real nice pictures of a full breach all the way down to the end of the Fluke. It rocked our 45-foot boat, and it was only, say, 20 feet from us. The whale pulled was literally right next to our boat when we were out off Gloucester, and you could see it looking at us with its eye. It was probably one of the pretty intimidating experience, but it was probably one of the coolest ones. Being neck and neck with the whale that's moving, like at 30 knots as fast as your boat can go was a pretty interesting experience. The whale was longer than our 40-foot or 45-foot boat. It was really, really a wild experience, I have to say. And we saw like 57 breaches. It's one of the most breaches, and it was off Gloucester. It was in Brimfield time frame. I don't remember the time of year, but I want to say it was going towards winter. Maybe in the fall, maybe it was. But it was a great experience, and it was one of our bucket lists too. So anyway, if you get a chance to do it yourself if you love animals. That was great. Yeah, St. Louis, Tyrannius. Yeah, and that's a poster stamp from the fair. I believe that's long since sold, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Hang on a second here. I've lost the feed again. Okay, here we go. Richard Johnson, you were at Webster's on Monday for the holiday, made a huge haul. Yeah, Webster's was always good, for those of you who know the area. I used to set up even in art galleries out in that area, Claremont and in Webster. Kimbra, welcome. Yeah, a separate group for Patreon folks. Tyrannius, I have a Patreon page, yes. I don't post nearly as much content as I do here. There's a couple videos I post a month. It's basically to help support this channel, to allow me to do this. It's not required, but there are some insider tips that I do give out. I do give out for, depending on which subscription you have, but I do give out a complete list of every video I have up, including a searchable list, so you can just type in a specific item, and it will show you those the videos with it in it. It actually even has a link to the video, so it's 50-plus pages, just FYI. The new one's, I think, 64 pages, which will be up tomorrow for all the Patreon. Anyway. Looks like we're running down on time again. Yeah, I'm going to have to cut it short here, unfortunately. I realize we are past where I wanted to go, so I will call it a night. I hate to cut anybody else off. I try to get to as many questions as I can. If you didn't hit the like button yet, please hit the like button. But I do have to say good night. I'm going to do some Patreon call-outs tomorrow to my Patreon subscribers too, so you'll probably see 2 videos up tomorrow, just FYI. But again, thanks everybody for being on, and we will call it quits.